All right, we have Cody Stamann joining us right now, and it turns out that he's getting ready to head to Fight Island to fight Jimmie Rivera on Wednesday night. What a great fight to add last minute, Cody. It's been a little while, man. Good to see you. How are you?
I'm really good. How are you?
I'm doing great. So how did this all come together? Because I had heard that you had put your name in the hat to fight Frankie Edgar once Pedro Munoz was forced to withdraw after the positive COVID test. But I was also told that a lot of fighters put their names in that hat, and it didn't seem likely that Frankie was going to take a fight with anybody, really. So how did it all come together from your perspective? How did we go from maybe fighting Frankie, hoping to fighting Frankie, to getting Jimmie Rivera so quickly?
So maybe two and a half weeks ago, they asked me if I wanted to fight Jimmie Rivera in August, beginning of August. So, I immediately said, yes, let's do it. I think that was August 9th. And then it had been Monday, I got a phone call about Frankie and, if I'd be willing to do that on a shorter notice. And I was thinking, well, I just fought. I'm already preparing for someone. My weight is pretty good. Would you be willing to do it at 45? And he said, no way. And I understand why. He literally spent all that time getting down to 35, and then he's going to have to, fight a 45 pounder. And, right now I am a true 45 pounder. I'm pretty big. So, Frankie says no. And then, Frankie, they can't really find anyone for Frankie. And then I think the solution was, since Jimmie and I had both already committed to fighting each other, on a later date, and we were both, willing to fight Frankie on short notice, like, why not make that fight? So I was fighting Jimmie in August, so he's a guy I've already been preparing for, so when the call came to, fight Jimmie instead of Frankie, I said, well, why not? And I had to cut 10 less pounds. That sounds amazing to me, because that's the worst part of the whole ordeal for me. I hate cutting weight. I hate the diet. I hate everything. You know what I mean? The next 4 weeks of my life are going to be hell to get my weight down. So now that I'm fighting at 45, I'm already in a good place, considering I was, I just made the weight, a month ago, and I'm going to do it again. So, for me, it worked out. It couldn't work out any better, really.
Were there any other names discussed? Because I had heard that Merab Dvalishvili was a potential name thrown out there. I had heard some rumblings about that. And then Aljamain Sterling sort of mentioned something similar on his podcast about it. Was that name ever presented?
No, I never heard any. The only Jimmie and Frankie were the only two names that I ever heard of. I never even saw anyone else. I know that everybody, you think that when you're Frankie Edgar and you're one of the best to ever do it, that, no one really wants to fight you because they realize how good you are, but it's the complete opposite. You know what I mean? Like, everybody wants to build their name on you, so, me wanting to fight Frankie, Frankie is honestly probably my favorite MMA fighter in the UFC. So, hats off to him. And I hope they schedule that, because I was really excited actually to watch that fight against Pedro Munoz.
Yeah, I agree. So you're right back at it. Like you said, you just fought not too long ago at UFC 250. It was a great performance over Brian Kelleher. You obviously fought with a very heavy heart. I haven't had the chance to speak with you, so my condolences to you and your family right here. But, what was that week like for you, man? Having to sort of keep those emotions, all of that grieving to the side, really, in order to perform the way that you did on Fight Night, because it was something really special to watch, man.
That week was that whole. It was amazing until, I got some really, really bad family news. I was so excited to finally be fighting. I'd had 3 fights canceled because of COVID. And then, to find out that I'm fighting Brian Kelleher, which I knew was a good matchup for me. I was super excited. And I get that news, and then, everything just changes. And then you're kind of in this crazy whirlwind where I'm just trying to, stay focused on what I have to do. But it's hard. It's impossible to do. You know what I mean? Like, I'm a pretty mentally tough guy, but like that, I've never had to deal with anything like that before. So it absolutely threw me off my axis. But, on fight day, I just kept telling myself, I need 15 minutes. I need 15 minutes of focus, 15 minutes or less. That's all I need. Just, you know what I mean? Hold it together for 15 minutes. And that's what I did, and under the circumstances, I think I did pretty well.
Is your mental strength even better than it was before? Because you said you were already mentally strong heading in. It has to be it probably jumped up a couple of notches after that whole fight in that whole situation.
Yeah, right? Maybe, I guess, what makes people mentally strong, with the hard stuff like that happening is kind of what builds character. So, Yeah, I mean, maybe I'm a little more mentally strong, but I don't really know.
So between the time that fight ended to the time that you put pen to paper to fight Rivera in August, how long was that?
Geez, 3 weeks. 3 weeks. So I went home for a week. I took a solid week off. Took care of the family stuff, and then kind of started working out again. Light, kind of doing things on my own, running, shadow boxing, stuff like that. And then came back to Vegas, and it was like I was here for a day, and the Rivera fight popped up. So it was right back to 2 days, you know what I mean? So when I got the call, and the fact that I've basically had, a week off, a light week, and then 3 hard weeks, and then I'm going into, what is going to be fight week for me starting tomorrow. So, honestly, like as far as timing goes, it's ideal. You know what I mean? Obviously, with my weight and everything, like I said, that's my biggest opponent. Really, is my weight. Battling to get to 35 is a nightmare for me. So the fact that I get to fight a little bit sooner at 45, it's amazing. I'm excited.
And as this is all going on in between your fight with Kelleher and signing to fight Rivera, you got to watch another fellow Michigan-born fighter have a successful UFC debut, Justin Jaynes. He looked phenomenal, man. I mean, that call was long overdue. He delivered it a big way. How exciting was that for you to see a guy like that who's been grinding away for so many years finally get his shot and then enter the promotion like that? Yeah,
it was amazing. I mean, so Justin, is one of my really good training partners at Extreme Couture. We work out together consistently, and I used him a lot in preparation for Brian Kelleher because he's got one of the best head and arm guillotines I've ever. Like, Justin has an amazing ground game. He didn't even get really a chance to show it, but it was awesome. He got that short notice call, and like we were talking about it too. Like literally, because I was fighting, and I was like, listen, this was 2 weeks notice, and like I'm in the show. Like, dude, something's gonna happen. You're in Vegas. You know what I mean? I'm like, get your medicals done. I was telling him, like, dude, this chaos is creating a lot of opportunities for guys like you. Like, you're gonna get in. You need to be ready. You know what I mean? Get your weight down and be in the gym. And he agreed, and he was. So, I couldn't be happier for him. He definitely earned that. He's got like 60 amateur fights and so many pro fights, and he's beat so many good guys. He's like one of the best guys you've never heard of, and I'm super happy he finally got his opportunity to shine.
Yeah, because you've been training with him for years, right? Even before
years. I've known Justin for 10 years, probably at least. You know what I mean? Like when I started fighting, Justin had 30 amateur fights. You know what I mean? And then and honestly, like he probably went out and beat better guys than I ever did. You know what I mean? Like my record was a little bit more polished, but Justin beat some really good guys. Fighting contenders, like saying yes to every fight. You know what I mean? He like really kind of embodied the fighting mentality, and the fact that he could fight anybody, anytime, short notice, didn't matter, he would do it.
I'm sure that you and Justin over the years have had some really strong battles in the gym. Is there any fun stories between the two of you guys on the mats?
No. I mean, we've always been super respectful with each other. But I've definitely seen Justin clean up some other guys, though. I mean, he hits hard. The dude really does hit hard. And if you disrespect him, that's the, you know what I mean? Like two veterans going at it. We understand there's a line in between, you know what I mean? Like training and fighting, and we train, you know what I mean? We train together. There's never anything malicious happening, and you need guys like that. Otherwise you're going to get hurt and you're going to get your eggs scrambled before you ever make it in the cage. But I've seen Justin clean up some other guys. I've seen him break people's arms. I've seen him knock them out, and I'm sure he's watching me do the same to other people. So, I think dudes from the Midwest are tough. I don't think people realize how tough we are. We're a nasty bunch of dudes.
Yeah, he was telling me how he got into the sport and the crazy bar fights he used to have. He would just walk up to guys like, how much do you weigh? Are you tough? I'm tough too. Let's go fight. It's just bananas to see the road that he took to get to where he is now. But when do you actually leave for Abu Dhabi? Because as we record right now, it's Thursday evening here on the East Coast. It's about 3:15 p.m. where you're at. When do you actually take off?
So I leave at 9 tomorrow, and then I'll get there Saturday. my stay in Abu Dhabi is going to be pretty fast. It's basically, I'm going to get there. I'm going to quarantine for 48 hours. I'll get there Saturday night, quarantine 48 hours. I'll have 1 day essentially to be out of my hotel, and I will make weight, quarantine again, and then fight. So, you know, I have to obviously mentally prepare for that because it's a quick turnaround, but it's not that much different than, you know, landing Tuesday, fighting Saturday, which is something I've done, you know, several times. And I've made these long 14-hour flights, so I kind of know what to expect, kind of know what I need to do. And, yeah, I mean, like I say, I'm looking forward to the process. I want to get the weight off and, you know, go out there, kick some ass, come home and celebrate.
Jimmie's kind of in unfamiliar territory right now because he's never come into a fight on back-to-back losses before. He lost to Sterling and lost to Jan, arguably the top two guys in the division right now. But, you know, a lot of people there's a lot of fans out there who think that he was beating Petr Yan for most of that fight outside of getting dropped. Yeah. So what have you sort of made of what he's done in his last 3 or 4 fights after winning like 20 in a row before the Moraes fight?
Jimmie Rivera is not an easy out. He's a tough dude. He's a really, really tough dude. I knew it, you know, when I signed the fight or when I, you know, said I would fight him. You know, he's not a guy that you can take lightly. You know, he's dangerous. He's definitely dangerous in the pocket. You know, he's got a pretty fierce style, but you know, I just feel like I have more weapons. You know what I mean? Like I can wrestle him if I need to. I can fight at different ranges. You know, I think Jimmie 100% like embraces everything that it is to be like the fundamental boxer wrestler, like maybe a little bit of like Muay Thai guy. You know what I mean? You get in the pocket and he starts throwing, you know, really clean 2-3 punch combinations. I've enjoyed watching him over the years, but I've already formulated exactly how I'm going to beat him. You know what I mean? And I think other people have done that as well. You know, I think that there's an evolution to MMA. You know what I mean? And if you pay attention, like Jimmie was way ahead of everyone for a long time. But then the sport caught up. Guys could switch stances. Guys were kicking more. They could fight at different ranges and just mixed it up more. Right? I mean, we're a true mixed martial artist. And I'm one of those guys that I can get in there and I can box with you. You know, I was a Golden Glove state champ. I can do that. I can kickbox with you. I can, you know, throw spin kicks. I can wrestle. You know, I can do everything. And, you know, I think that's going to be the difference is that I have more weapons than he does. I know what Jimmie's going to bring. I've seen, you know, every single one of his UFC fights, and it's pretty consistent every single time as to what he's going to do. I mean, I don't think he went out and learned a completely new style from his last fight against Petr Yan. And if he did, cool. Still going to kick his ass.
It's so funny hearing you say that because it was almost like having the same conversation with Rivera like 3 or 4 years ago before he fought Uriah Faber. Said the exact same thing. He's like, listen, you know, you have to evolve in this game. And I feel like Faber hasn't evolved at all. And that's why he was so confident in winning the fight. And then hearing you say that all these years later, as you're getting ready to fight Rivera, it's kind of crazy to think about.
Yeah, I mean, listen, he's been in the UFC longer. He's got more UFC fights. Yeah, he's got more, you know, experience at this level. But, you know, I came up differently. And I've actually trained with him. We trained together once upon a time in Minnesota. We sparred and grappled a little bit. And I remember thinking back then, like, he was one of the best guys in the world. And it was like me, TJ Dillashaw, and him, like in like this like 3-man sparring group. And like I remember thinking back then, I'm like, oh, you know, I can beat this guy. Like he's good, but I think I could beat him. You know what I mean? Just because I can, you know, do different. And then I was a baby, and I didn't know half the shit I know now. And I don't see that much evolution from Jimmie. I think maybe he should have took his own advice when he was talking about Uriah Faber and evolve more. Unless he can do that in the next 5 days, it's going to be a tough trip for him.
Yeah, so it's got to be nice. I mean, you're going to be traveling really far, but when you take a fight like this, one, you don't have to cut the weight like you said, but two, you can't overthink anything here. You're just going, you're flying, you're cutting weight, and then you're fighting, right? Exactly.
Yeah, there's not a lot to think about. I mean, honestly, I like woke up this morning and realized that I was like, dude, I gotta fight. I'm fighting next week. You know what I mean? Like that's so crazy to me. But I've honestly performed better in those situations. 2 weeks, Brian Kelleher. That happened fast. I mean, I signed the contract like a week before that fight, and then my UFC debut Out of shape, coming off an injury, hadn't trained in months, and went out and, performed pretty well, on like 5 or 7 days notice. So I'm no amateur, in the short notice fight game. I've had a ton over my career, and I like to pride myself on being like a year-round athlete. So I'm always prepared for something like this.
It's going to be a fun fight. A couple more things before you go. I spoke with your old buddy Rob Font earlier today. He's on the comeback trail after surgery, and he said, Good. I asked him about this fight in particular. He said he doesn't care about it because he thinks it's going to be boring and terrible, were his exact words. What do you think about that?
Rob. I'm glad to hear he's recovering. Rob's definitely a guy that is going to be on the radar. But honestly, I don't really. I think, Rob's another one of those guys. Same thing. Good boxer, pretty one-dimensional. I don't really see him evolving either. I don't think he's even going to be. He's going to be in the conversation when, after this Jimmie fight, and then by the time he's ready to fight again. If Rob's name comes up, I don't even think he'll be relevant for me to fight because I'm going to be, so far past him. So screw you, Rob.
Fair enough. I know you're focused on Jimmie, and he's been the guy for a little while now, but you had expressed some interest on social media in fighting Sugar Sean O'Malley. It seems like Marlon Vera is probably the guy that he wants to fight on that UFC 252 fight card next month. But was that fight ever presented to you at all, you and O'Malley, or was it always Jimmie?
No. The O'Malley fight was never presented to me. And nor should it be. You know what I mean? Like, I'm absolutely the worst possible matchup for that little turd. He said something to me about. I said he won't even look me in the eyes, and he's like, "Well, you look at my belly button or something like that because you're so short." And that's like, I'm like, dude, you're like 115 pounds walking around. Like, dude, I'm gonna grab a hold of you and snap you like a twig. I'm like, you know what I mean? The fact that Sugar Sean, props to him for, being really, really good at marketing himself and being the flashy guy that he is. But, like, until he beats somebody in the top 10, somebody in the top 15, some legitimate opponents, like, nothing he says holds any weight in my life. You know what I mean? Like, dude, you're just the guy that the UFC is promoting to be the next big thing. Do you know how many guys like that I fought? You know what I mean? Tom Dukenhoff, Song Yadong, all these guys that were supposed to be the next best thing in the UFC. You know what I mean? Like, I've been shutting down careers like his consistently. I've made a lot of money doing it. So, if his name pops up, I already told my manager, I'm like, Donnie, you don't even have to send me the contract. Just sign it and tell me when and what weight I got to be, and then we'll just go from there.
You think he beats Vera? That's a tough fight for him.
I think that is a tough fight for him. And I watched, he fought Tyrion Ware. And, that was a gritty fight where he was losing and, Ware kind of ran out of gas, similar to what he did with me. And that was actually a really close, it was a pretty close fight. And Marlon Vera is he's in a lot better shape, and he's a lot more active. He's a lot more willing to get in those scraps, and he takes big shots. You know what I mean? He stood up against Song Yadong and was eating big shots and just walking through them and coming in. So, I think it's a horrible fight for Sean. Not to mention that they're both about the exact same size. You know what I mean? They're both about the same height, about the same reach. And that's going to be great for Sean because he relies on being able to get in and out. And against a guy that's just as tall as you and is walking you down, you're not going to have that space. So I think it's a terrible fight for Sean O'Malley. And hopefully Marlon Vera kicks his ass and I don't have to hear about this little turd ever again.
It's funny you mentioned Song Yadong because I think you had one of the best tweets of the year so far after that fight with Marlon Vera, and you said something to the effect of that he's the luckiest fighter on the UFC roster. You had to have scored that for Chito Vera. I think most people did,
yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I did. I rewatched it, and it was a lot closer than I had originally thought. Because I was kind of in Chito's corner. It was a close fight. It was a close fight, and I don't know what the judges saw. The one thing that I can say is that when Song Yadong lands, because the kid does hit. He's the hardest puncher I've ever. You know what I mean? He hits like a truck every single time. If he hits you in the shoulder, it just makes this wall up, this nasty sound. You know what I mean? So that's something I think probably swayed the judges. You know, hearing all those shots land, I think made a big difference. I felt Marlon Vera was definitely the better guy in that fight for sure.
Jan versus Aldo in a little over 48 hours as we record this conversation. Who wins that fight, you think?
100%. I think Jose Aldo wins that fight.
Really?
Oh, yeah. I think Peter Yan gets hit a lot. I think he gets hit a lot. I don't think he's ever been hit by anybody like Jose Aldo. You know what I mean? Like, look at who Peter Yan beat to get to the top. You know what I mean? Like, who he beat. His best win is against Jimmie Rivera. That's his toughest opponent to date. You know what I mean? And that was a fight where, you know, like we said earlier, he was losing most of that fight, and then landed some big shots. And you know, Jimmie just doesn't have the chin to take those shots. So I think Jose Aldo is going to land those shots too, because Jose Aldo is not the kind of guy that gives you space. You know what I mean? Unless Jan can land those big shots, you know, the way he has before, I really think Jose Aldo is going to put it to him.
Yeah, a lot of people are sleeping on Aldo in this fight, and you know, meritocracy be damned. It's still a great matchup, like a great martial arts fight, you know, and the title's on line. It is what it is, but I'm excited for that one. I think a lot of people are sleeping on that fight and on Aldo as well.
Yeah, I definitely, you know, that's so weird to me too, that, you know, people are sleeping on Jose Aldo. Everything that he's done, you know what I mean? The people that he's beat, it's crazy, because I mean, he was beaten, like he beat Jeremy Stevens and a couple other really, really good 45 pounders like recently. You know what I mean? He still looks good. You know, like who's he really getting beat by? He's getting beat by like the number 1, number 2 guys in the world at weight classes. You know what I mean? Nobody else beats Jose Aldo. You know, that the fight with Marias was like crazy close. Yeah. You know, I mean, that really could have went either way. His first time at 35, he fights the best guy in the world at 35. I mean, it's crazy. It's crazy. Yeah, I don't know how you can sleep on Jose Aldo.
You know, Rob Font may not be excited for your fight with Jimmie Rivera on Wednesday night, but I definitely am, Cody. I appreciate the time very much. Safe travels, safe quarantining in Abu Dhabi. All the best to you in the fight on Wednesday night. Looking forward to it, man.
Thanks, brother. Appreciate it.